yourself a cold one.
They strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast, presented, of course, as always, by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. Most of you guys know that. Love calling games, whether it's college or NFL. This past weekend, I was able to do the Oregon State game at Nevada, and Nevada got their biggest win in a long time, taking down the Beavers at home. Was very happy from Nevada. And, you know, I'm going to interrupt this real quick. This is what Emory and I talk about all the time. Most people don't know, and many players, if any, from Oregon State and Nevada, they have some good players, man. I mean, they both have some really good players. Like, I love the running backs for both of them. Hankerson, who used to be at Colorado, he's at Oregon State now. I mean, he would not go down. And then for Nevada, they got this transfer. They got a couple transfers from Texas where the coach, Jeff Choate, came from. He was the DC at Texas. Like, I'm telling you, Savion Red, their running back, is electric. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns. Their quarterback, Brendan Lewis, he's a former Colorado transfer. He did some good things. So I will say, Emory, I think that is the best part of the transfer portal, is that guys that weren't playing or whatever were behind some great players somewhere else can go to, like, transfer from Texas to Nevada and get a chance to play and show what they can do.
Yeah, and it was a fun game too. I saw the Teckle Bowl like touchdown that in the Nevada game that you guys referenced. That's when Nevada started that comeback, and he ended up, you know, they were down big, came back, tied it, and then won big. So you're right, and that's the whole beauty of it. Even though he didn't have the best game against Nevada, Giovanni McCoy was at Idaho last year, played really well, was a part of a couple of upsets over some FBS teams, and he found himself at Oregon State. And you like these stories, and people are now starting to realize week 8 we're in college football, they're realizing that, hey, man, there's good teams around the country, and not every week is a given. And we're seeing that any given Saturday really matters in college football now across the gambit.
He is the czar of the playbook. You can check him out on Twitter like I do, at FBall Game Plan. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We're at Ross Tucker Pod. Of course, I'm talking about the great Emory Hunt. Those of you that are loyal listeners or viewers, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL of the College Draft, you know Emory well, but because we are putting this show on some of the other feeds from time to time, because we want you guys to listen or watch, some of you might not be as familiar, highly recommend you check out the Football Game Plan page on YouTube. And then the draft guide is just excellent. Footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. Here's what we do every week on this show. We kind of recap Emory's bets from the week before. We talk about the best prospects in the biggest games and get Emory's picks against the spread in those games. And then we might chop it up a little bit around some of the other conversation going on around college football, or some of the prospects that had big days, like Penn State tight end Tyler Warren, who we've already talked about quite a bit. Just a really unique, fantastic, fun player for sure. We'll start with last week, Emory. Not our best week, okay? We had a winning record going into last week, or I guess we were 500. 0 for 4, and they were close. Ohio State, you took them laying the 4.5. They lost to Oregon by 1. LSU, you like the LSU Ole Miss over. That was a high total. That was 64. Ended up being 29-26. You like to lay points a lot more than I do. You laid the 4 with Pitt. They were only able to beat Cal 17-15. You laid the 4.5 with Penn State. They were only able to beat USC 33-30. I'm curious, though, Emory, in any of those games, any guys really stand out to you? I guess the one guy in particular I wanted to talk to you about was Dylan Gabriel. It feels like he's been in college forever. I called one of his true freshman games when he was at UCF, and he was already awesome at UCF as a true freshman with Josh Heupel as his coach. That was a while ago. But now he went to Oklahoma. Now he's at Oregon. What's he like as a pro prospect, do you think, Emory?
He would be, Ross, and this is not a knock, he will be an elite CFL quarterback. The wide fields, the spread open offense, the way he's able to really just, play from that up tempo, spread style, it really works extremely well in the CFL. When you condense the field in the NFL and you have to get rid of the football quicker and have to be a little bit more sped up in terms of your process, that's where the inconsistency will tend to come for him as a pro. So I hope he gets an opportunity as an NFL guy, but he would be an elite CFL quarterback right now.
Interesting. He's fun to watch. I know that much. And you know what? The problem with the CFL for these guys, Emory, is like that would be a pretty significant pay cut for him for what he's getting at Oregon right now. That's why these guys are trying to stay in college as long as they possibly can. They're getting more money in college than they are in the pros, or at least the non-NFL pros. Even for a guy like him, Sam Hartman made a heck of a lot more at Notre Dame last year than he is on practice squad now for the Commanders after they just released him. Anybody else jump out to you in that Ohio State-Oregon game? Ohio State just has so many guys, so many prospects. Anyone really jump out?
Well, just the end of the game, the Will Howard play, not understanding the clock and situation and really taking off and sliding. Because the game I called that weekend, Morgan State and Merrimack, ran into the same situation where the quarterback on a Hail Mary scenario with a chance to really win the game didn't give his team a chance because he threw in the flat with like 5 seconds left. Like, bro, what are you doing? And so with Will Howard and how he was going back and forth with Dylan Gabriel, that situation matters. I'm big on situational football when it comes to scouting quarterbacks, which is why my rankings tend to look a lot different than a lot of folks. And that was the biggest blunder that you could have as a quarterback. Understanding down and distance, time, situation. I care about that way more than height, weight, arm strength, speed. And that was a big blunder for Will Howard.
I got to be honest with you. It was not good, but I feel like people are making too big a deal out of that. He knew the situation. He knew how much time was left. He was trying to I think he thought he was getting down with 2 or 1 seconds left. They could call a timeout and kick a field goal. Like, that's why he slid. People are acting like he had no idea how much time was left. He had an idea. I mean, he didn't have a great sense for the exact 6 seconds, but I think in his mind, 6 seconds, I can run 10 yards and then slide and get the timeout. The problem was he hung in the pocket for 3 of them. Then he ran. But people are acting like he had no clue. He had a clue. I mean, he missed it by a second. They tried to call timeout right then. If he had slid 2 yards earlier, they would have been able to get the timeout and attempt the field goal attempt. I mean, it wasn't good, but people are acting like he's the biggest moron of all time. He knew that the clock was running down. That's why he slid. I don't know. I think people are making too big of a deal out of that one. What about any of these other games, prospect standpoint? LSU, Ole Miss, Pitt, Cal, Penn State, USC.
Well, Tyler Warren, we could talk about him in terms of how well he played. And again, I'm on the broadcast, and luckily we were in a commercial break where I saw the play where he snapped the football, gets vertical, and then makes touchdown catch. Like just insane amount of athleticism and speed. And it shows you how valuable having playmakers are because wide receivers weren't having the best day. I know some guys stepped up on third down consistently throughout the game or fourth down consistently throughout the game. But Warren was the most consistent receiving weapon they had in that contest and the big reason why they won. And it shows you how good this dude is and how valuable it is to have him on the field because it does open up things for everyone else because the focus will be on him. He is a first round prospect, Ross. I don't care. You know, I'm all about drafting first round talent in the first round. I don't care about positional value. I don't care about, none of this other stuff. Give me the dudes that impact the game. When I turn on the Penn State game, I see 44 making plays all over the field. I want 44 on my team.
He's a fantastic football player. I don't know if he's a first-round pick or second-round pick, but he's awesome. And, man, did he make the right decision coming back to school because now with this new OC, Andy Kotelnicki, who he's like the Kotelnicki is like the Ben Johnson of college football to me. The Lions OC, Ben Johnson, with all the different cool plays that Ben Johnson uses and the explosive plays. That's Kotelnicki at Penn State. This is what they should have been doing last year. I mean, last year they had Tyler Warren and Theo Johnson, who's the starting tight end for the Giants. They should have been in 12 personnel, feeding those guys all the time. I mean, it's a missed opportunity because also their receivers weren't very good last year. So it was a huge, huge missed opportunity. All right, let's get into your bets for this week, Emory, to make sure we get those done. Emory's bets are presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. We definitely are going to get to Georgia, Texas, holy cow, as well as Bama, Tennessee. Let's start, though. I like when you always have these guys out of nowhere that have caught your eye. Western Kentucky at San Jose State. Western Kentucky's getting 3, totals 55.5.
Listen, it's Sam Houston State that's really that's playing Western Kentucky, and the reason why I chose this game, Ross, is because quiet as kept, Sam Houston has a chance to win Conference USA. And they've played some really good ball in their second season of FBS ball. And Western Kentucky has found themselves playing into the conversation of Conference USA as well. Now, Liberty sits at the top, but this is a huge game on the schedule, and we get this one earlier in the week. And you look at wide receiver Dalvin Smith. He's about 6'2", 190 pounds for Western Kentucky. I think he runs tremendous routes. He has good quickness and is able to get atop the defensive back and stack him. So when you think about those elements as a receiver, them going deep down the field for him, it doesn't take much for him to win right away. And they have a chance to really push vertical against his defense, which will be fascinating because on the other side, Chris Murray, the defensive lineman for Sam Houston, great length, good off the ball, does a great job in pressuring the quarterback. And he's a junior. So he's 6'4", about 250, and shows that he could play in a 3-man front and a 4-man front. So he's giving you some versatility, but he's good in terms of pressuring the pocket. And when you're talking about defending a Western Kentucky team, it's about pressuring the pocket in the passing game because that's where they live. So that's a good matchup to watch from a college football playoff group of 5 standpoint and from a prospect standpoint. But I do like Sam Houston in this ball game. I'm laying those points with Sam Houston because of how well they have played defense. They're good on both sides of the line of scrimmage. I think that's going to cause an issue for Western Kentucky.
Yeah, and they're playing at home. I was surprised. They beat Hawaii pretty bad when Hawaii went there a little earlier in the year. All right, what about Oklahoma State? They're at BYU. Oklahoma State's getting 9 points, Emory. The total's 55.5. And I'm a little bit scratching my head about, did I miss something? Did they have guys opt out? I thought Oklahoma State, they have 19 returning starters. I thought they were going to be awesome this year. And that's obviously not the case.
Right. And that was my preseason pick for the Big 12 because of that reason. You have all that veteran, talent returning. You have what was a Doak Walker candidate, Heisman Trophy candidate in the backfield who hadn't really gotten off the ground this year in Ollie Gordon. Bowman, you thought would be a little bit more cautious with the football, and none of this has happened. But there are some guys that are standing out. Kendall Dennis, the safety. I mean, from a top-down perspective, Ross, he's 6'3", 236. There's not a safety in the country that fills the alley like Daniels does.
6'3", 236 safety?
And they have him listed as 6'4" on the roster. He's 6'3", but let's give him.
He'll be moving to linebacker.
Yeah, exactly, right. He's like a Sam Backer or someone like that, where you love the fact that he is approaching the alley and in the run game with authority and can move again from a top-down perspective. That's going to be good in this game against BYU because we know Retzlaff, the quarterback, is also their leading rusher. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them try to use him in a situation where he's technically the spy and won't allow him to get outside the pocket and make him play a one-dimensional game. For BYU, you look at Tyler Batty, the defensive lineman. I love how patient and how cognizant he is at the point of attack. Like, he sees the game rather well. So you know how linemen will try to pull or they'll try to influence you with the back going one way or any kind of jet motion with the receivers? Nope. Batty is going to stay right there and watch what's going on and then get to the ball. And he's able to use his hands. His eyes and hands work in unison. He's a big defensive end. He's like 6'4", 275. So he's able to play at the point of attack. He is able to disengage and chase the ball. So he is an excellent prospect, and it's going to be funny to watch how both teams handle the point of attack because that's where this game will be won. I will take Oklahoma State in the points. 9 is a lot considering how much Oklahoma State has, and BYU's passing game isn't really that good. They've been effective, but they've been beating teams with discipline and not beating themselves. They've generated some turnovers. I feel like Oklahoma State can keep this one within that number.
All right. Then we got Nebraska and Indiana. Nebraska's getting 6.5 against Indiana. The Hoosiers having a historic year right now, in part because their quarterback and in part because of their coach.
Curtis Rourke is the number one CFL quarterback prospect or number one prospect in the CFL. According to their scouting bureau, they put out their fall scouting rankings, and he's number one. His brother is a starting quarterback for the BC Lions, and Nathan Rourke. Both guys played at Ohio, but Curtis is bigger. Curtis, I think, is a much better passer, has good athleticism, and he's directing one of the top offenses in the country right now. So obviously the CFL will have to wait for Rourke because he's going to get a lot of NFL opportunities, but he's a very good quarterback. Stays healthy this year, which has allowed him to really continue to build on the consistency every week. And that's why we're seeing the best of him and subsequently the best of the Indiana Dukes because half those dudes came from JMU anyway. So with Kurt Signetti. So that's why that team is fun to watch. I love that we're seeing this team hadn't been like this since my guy Anthony Thompson was back there running the football and was a Heisman finalist, in the late 80s, and Alex Smith also ran the football too in the late 90s too, before people knew about how good Indiana backs were. They had a lineage. Vaughn Dunbar throwing in between those two as well. So, but when you look at Nebraska, this is a good matchup because Nebraska has a good defensive back in Deshaun Singleton. I like how he plays, and he's going to be locked into what Indiana wants to do in terms of throwing the football. They love to go east and west before they go north and south. So you're going to see a lot of Singleton in this game, and he has a chance to really star. But I'm going to lay these points with Indiana. I like their offense. I think their offense is a little bit more consistent than Nebraska, so I could trust them winning by a touchdown.
Okay, so far, Emory likes Sam Houston State laying the 3 at home against Western Kentucky. He likes Oklahoma State getting 9 on the road at BYU. And he likes Indiana laying 6.5 at home against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Let's get to maybe the 2 biggest games of the weekend, Emory. A couple of teams that were rolling along, but they've both been upset 2 weeks ago, or I guess a week ago. Alabama is laying 2.5 on the road at Tennessee. Both had their field stormed after they lost on the road. Alabama at Vandy, Tennessee at Arkansas. The total is 56, Emory. Let's talk prospects first for each team.
I like Jan Miller, the running back. I like both their backs, Justice Haynes and also Jan Miller. I think Jan Miller does a great job in showing explosiveness and burst. And both backs, I think, pair well with one another, which is why and you combine that with obviously the running talents of Jalen Milroe, and Bama's run game can be dominant. On Tennessee's side, we're starting to see James Pierce do what he does. Now that he's back healthy in the lineup and he was so productive last week against Florida. I mean, you're starting to see why people talked about him. Some even talked about him as a number 1 overall type pick. I'm not there yet. I do think he's a top 15 type pick because of the upside. Can be that Leonard Floyd type guy. He can rush the passer. You can trust him to drop back in the short zone coverage. He makes plays consistently at or behind the line of scrimmage, can make plays in that short zone area. We see him catch an interception, have a pick six. So he does a lot of things defensively, and him playing in this ball game is a chance to really continue to elevate. And the funny part is, man, like both are coming off scares last week. Bama probably should have lost against South Carolina, and Tennessee nearly lost against Florida. And so now you have this game that's a big matchup, third Saturday in October, but also the ancillary things surrounding it, man. Like, Alabama's heart blood pressure is super high right now with how they've been winning these ball games, or even the game that they lost to Vanderbilt. So the pressure's on Kalen DeBoer. And Tennessee, man, ever since they were upset, people are questioning, well, where's the 40-point offense? How come this offense hasn't looked like it's supposed to look? But Tennessee can run the football. So I would say take the under in this ball game. That's my best play. I feel like we'll see a tense game, a tightly close to the vest game. Let's just try to do what we can to be efficient and not get crazy. This one to go under that total.
Going under the 56 is Emory for Alabama and Tennessee, neither one of which put up a whole lot of points last week. So we'll see how they do against each other, trying to put up those points. And last, but definitely not least, Emory, Georgia at Texas. Totals 56.5. Texas laying 3.5 at home.
Dylan Bell is someone that I've liked since he got on campus and started playing for Georgia. Yes, he wears number 86, but I love when they use him in the backfield because he can run the football. He has good vision. Reminds me a lot of Cordero Patterson and how he has that crossover ability as well. Bell has been a good back for them when he's used in that scenario, when they ask him to carry the football. But he's also a very good playmaker as a receiver. So I would suggest they get him the football as much as possible because he is a tremendous talent, could give this Texas defense some problems. Texas, Barron Sorrell, linebacker, pass rusher, does a good job playing, in terms of chasing the ball, going away. They're good on defense. They have a lot of speed. And I think this game will come down to which quarterback can you trust the most. We started to see Carson Beck kind of shake out of a funk against Mississippi State, and start just to pepper that secondary with targets. And then we saw Quinn Ewers, is kind of still feeling his way back, in the mix. It's first start, since coming back off the injury. So you kind of expect him to shake some rust off. But this is a game where quarterback play is going to be key. But when you look at the team pound for pound in terms about consistency, I mean, Texas dominates the team that they're supposed to dominate. Georgia was in a, pun intended, dogfight with Mississippi State that they shouldn't have been. So I'm going to take Texas here to win this ball game, and I'm going to lay these points with Texas. I trust their defense. I think they're the better team overall, and they've shown a more consistent approach to how they play in these games.
Emory laying the 3.5 with the Texas Longhorns on Saturday night should be fantastic. Check him out on social media at FBall Game Plan. Emory's got the Monmouth Bryant game on Saturday. I'll be calling Wake Forest at UConn on Saturday on CBS Sports Network. I can tell you who I see in that game. And then Sunday night radio, it'll be the Jets and the Steelers in the Sunday night booth for Westwood 1. Other than that, the keg is kicked. We are all tapped out. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to College Draft. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and Fantasy Feast, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.